Joining me in studio to talk about his campaign for Texas 19, Greg Garrett back with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Chad. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. How's the campaign been going for you?
Lots of windshield time. I appreciate it. Good to get to know all these folks out here.
What when traveling the district, I would assume that at different times, because a lot of people are obviously paying attention to the presidential race, and it seems whatever is going on in the presidential race, that seems to move its way down to y'all's race as well. So what are some of the issues that lately people are talking to you about?
You know, some of the big issues that I've been talking about is folks are tired of people going to Washington and turning it into something that they didn't intend for them to become. You know, secondly, there's concern about people going up there and staying for a lifetime appointment. You know, we get the special interest groups. We get folks that go up there and 20 years later, we're trying to figure out where they're at and where they're going to live when they retire.
How long, if elected, do you plan on serving in Washington?
You know, what I have said is I will fight to go for a 10-year term limit. I really believe that we got to get up every morning with urgency and go up to D.C. and make sure that we do what we're supposed to do and then come home. I also understand the other part of the argument. It takes a while to get where we need to go. But I'll tell you, we got a 12% approval rating in Congress. You know, it's worse than Obama at 48%. I think it's time we have term limits. I think it's time we sit down and say, you know what, we can do this.
Is it the amount of time that people don't like when it comes to members of Congress, or is it that, and you brought this up, campaigning is one thing, going to Washington, D.C., and you want to be liked by everybody. You want to go to all the parties, all the cocktail parties, everything, so you kind of fit into that group. Well, what is it that really drives the voter, anger at Congress, you think?
You know, I think there needs to be campaign finance reform. I'll tell you that I think what we do is it's hard. Running a campaign is expensive. We have to raise money. It's a continual ask for money to be able to be on the media. You know, I think what happens is we get up into D.C., and after a few years, I think our congressmen get tired of asking, and they decide to sell themselves out to lobbyists and other folks who will finance their campaign so if they don't have to be on the phone 20% of the day. And I think that's the problem we have.
So how do you convince voters out there that you're not going – and this is one of the questions I get with all the candidates from listeners out there. How can you convince us that you're not going to turn into that?
You know, good point. You know, number one, I promise to hold myself spiritually accountable to the church that I serve today here in Lubbock, Texas at Trinity Church. And secondly, I will bring myself together with wise men and wise women. I'll have an accountability system where I actually have people that I will sit down on a regular basis, hopefully quarterly while I'm up there, and to make sure that I'm holding to the standards morally and financially that I set out to.
We had a controversy, I think really just one big controversy so far in this Texas 19 race, and it was involving one of your opponents, Colonel Starr. The Abilene Reporter News, and I'm asking this of all the candidates, the Abilene Reporter News said that this is not a big deal. People should ignore it. This is, just basically dreamed up, a manufactured controversy. A couple of your other opponents have said, no, this is real. You, in fact, had a press release, I think, this past Monday on the issue. So is this a big deal? Is this something where you look at Colonel Starr and you go, well, wait a minute, at the Faith and Family Forum and at other forums where this question has been brought up, you kind of lean this direction, but at Dyess Air Force Base, when you weren't running for something, it seems like you were embracing something else. What do you say to voters who ask you about it?
The first thing I want to tell the voters is he was supposed to come on your show yesterday at 9 a.m. and fell ill and went to Covenant Hospital. I don't know how he is today, but I hope everybody said a prayer for him. You know, he's a good man. I like him personally as I've gotten to know him over the campaign. But, I would be disappointed in any Republican candidate that's engaged in or supported activities that are opposed to really both biblical and Republican principles. And now we see somebody trying to kind of back up, trying to justify it. You know, what I say is this country, or what the 19th Congressional District has an opportunity to provide, is truly, Chad, a representative that stands firmly on his beliefs, regardless of the winds of the political correctness. I believe I'm that candidate.
Visiting with Greg Garrett here in studio. We'll take our first break. When we come back, we'll get into some of the issues that will potentially face Congress going into the future. And, of course, if you have a question, feel free to dial in at 770-5790, toll-free, 1-800-687-0790. We'll be right back with Greg Garrett. All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk 790 KFYO. Greg Garrett in studio, campaigning for Texas 19, hoping to replace Congressman Randy Neugebauer. Greg, I want to ask you about endorsements that are out there, and an endorsement that I'm sure you were disappointed did not go your way. Was from the Independent Bankers Association, and you're the banker in the race. Were you disappointed with their decision? What went on there? Was that something where you contacted them and they did interviews, or I'm assuming you think they made the wrong decision?
Well, Chad, you're right. I've been a banker for 35 years. I'm a member of IBAT. I pay their salary. One of the things you run into with special interest groups where you've got different PACs and you got different individuals who stick together in their decisions. Obviously Jody's done a good job of getting his name out there and visiting with different bankers. He probably had a little advantage over all of us. I mean, he ran against Charles Perry for the Senate, so he had the ability to kind of know who to talk to before this thing took off. We had about 90 days. I'm sure he got his word out and did a good job of it. I'm proud that he did that. Obviously, I wished I'd have had it, but he got it.
Do you think that are endorsements big in this race, do you think?
No, I'm really proud that I got the Heidi Group endorsement for pro-life. I'm excited about that because I do believe in life from, conception to death. But I will say that overall, there's not a lot of endorsements given during the primary. They wait to see if there's a runoff.
Right. Visiting with Greg Garrett. Let's say you're elected and you get to go to Washington, D.C. What are three of the top issues that you wanted? If the president said, okay, congratulations, we know you're a freshman, but we want to give you the magic wand. We want you to tackle three issues. What are those three issues?
It's kind of like picking your favorite three scripture verses out of the Bible. But number one is obviously national debt. I think we got $19 trillion in debt. We agreed to do another $1 trillion last year. We've got $225 trillion globally in debt. We've got, we don't know what our contingent liabilities are with the Freddie and Fannie Mae bailout in 2008. I'll just tell you, if we don't have money to pay for the bombs to drop on ISIS, if we don't have money to provide for our immigration issues that we have, we're in trouble. And that's one of the main reasons I'm running. I mean, I run a federally regulated bank. I have the highest compliance rating in the nation as one, understanding how regulations work and how to work within those bounds. So obviously national debt is Greg Garrett. Domestic terrorist obviously would be number two. And the third thing I hear, and the biggest polling data, is immigration.
Mm-hmm. Visiting with Greg Garrett, had a drive-by caller who wanted to ask this question. They would like to know what you have done proactively to affect legislation in your industry, which banking is where they were going. And that one, I know you also do real estate, but banking is where they were going on that.
Well, absolutely. I've been a very proactive banker as far as being able to be part of the community, TIB, TAB, IBAT. There's several different industries that I've been involved in. Have I wrote legislation to affect banking? No, but I've been involved in meetings and going and being involved all the way to D.C. I mean, I've been to see Neugebauer several times. Obviously, every other year I go to the House and make my voice be heard. I think that's the one thing that we as voters need to make sure of, is that we go and make our voice be heard. I've also, talking about pro-life, I was one of the probably 5 people from Lubbock that, when they stood up for life at the state, went there and held the sign and said, you know what, let's make a change and let's make sure we keep Texas the way it's supposed to.
Visiting with Greg Garrett, we're going to take our final break of this half hour. When we come back, we'll have one more segment with Greg Garrett. I received another message, a listener out there wanting to know what your plan would be to tackle the nation's debt.
Excellent question, and there's a lot of specifics I have about it. Number one, every agency up in D.C. is not audited. As a bank, I don't have to get audited, but I do for my stockholders. We the people are the stockholders. Number two, you've got to have common sense business people up there, not somebody that's lived in a dream world. You've got to have separation of duties. The guy that's funding it should be separate from the guy that's doing the underwriting. If you think about the guy underwriting, he's writing covenants that have to be fulfilled for us to be able to supply the money. And then the accounting division doesn't need to be tied into the person funding it. That person also needs to be separated and moved to the Treasury so they can look in the documents, look at the covenants, and only fund when all the necessary requirements are met.
A big question in this race has been leadership, and who has the most leadership, who's going to be the best leader in Washington, D.C. What are things you can point to in your life and your businesses that show you're the leader to take on Washington?
Well, number one, regulators would not allow me to be a CEO of a nationally federal regulated bank if I wasn't a leader to begin with, and I understood common sense business principles, and I understand regulations, and I understand the overregulation. And I think the second thing as a leader is, obviously, I have a second business. I'm a real estate agent who's the broker and owner of a business to be able to send my kids and have a better life for my family. And I'm somebody that's proven that, has a proven track record. One person that has to turn in their financials on a quarterly basis. Maybe it's time Washington turns in their financials on a quarterly basis. I got the leadership. I've demonstrated it. I'm ready to go.
And do you think that what you just said, do you think that, that trumps the other people in this race?
I do. I think factually, when you look at actually my ability to start businesses, to contain businesses, to grow businesses, to develop, to keep them capitalized, to meet payroll, to see what's left over to take home at night, absolutely it does. Do I have political experience? No. Boy, that's a good thing in this race. I think we're tired of politicians. We're tired of the same old thing. It's time for a change.
Visiting with Greg Garrett here in studio. What is your plan when it comes to border and immigration, and what should we do with those who are here illegally?
Immigration's probably the biggest polling issue that we have out there. I tell people, when I was growing up, we didn't lock our doors at night, but we lock our doors at night today, and it's not because we hate the people on the outside. It's because we love the people on the inside. It's time to start protecting ourselves. I also get tired of people that cut in line. You go to a movie or you go to a restaurant and somebody cuts in line. We're tired of people cutting in line. There's a lot of good people trying to get over the United States legally, which I'm 100% about. But you know what? People are cutting in line, and I'm tired of it. Now let's talk about the people that are already here, because that's a big deal. People, our system is broken. To go get a green card and take 5 years is a broken system in Washington, D.C. We need a limited time basis to where they do need to go get a green card. It needs to be limited no longer than 2 years. If they don't go get it, they go home. I don't care how long they've been over here. They are not provided the benefits. They're not provided the ability to vote, but they are provided to stay here as long as they have not committed a crime here or in the country they belong to. If they've committed a crime, we ship them. We never let them come home back.
Visiting with Greg Garrett, is there ever a time where, in your mind, where those who are here illegally become full U.S. citizens or just residents?
I believe a 10-year program might be satisfactory, but I'm not ready to make that decision right now.
I guess we've got about a minute or so left in the interview. Then go ahead and tell folks what they need to know about Greg Garrett.
Well, here's the first thing I'd like to say to, Chad, to whom much is given, much is required. As we really head into these final stages of the primary, I just want to encourage everybody to vote. We are so blessed by God to live in a country where voting is just not a privilege. It's just not a right. Rather, it's the duty of every citizen. So I urge you to take seriously this duty for your sake and for the sake of your children and your grandchildren, Chad. And I want to reaffirm just how serious I'll take the job of representing you in Congress. With God as my guide, I will work hard to reinstitute the principles of morality and freedom established by God himself and recognized by our founding fathers. Like you and all of you out there listening, I want to take back our country from the immoral and destructive path of the liberal and corrupt men and women who've just broken their pledge to protect America. Before God, I pledge to give all and to maintain integrity. Please cast your vote for Greg Garrett, the godly conservative candidate. Go to GregGarrettForCongress.com or look it up on YouTube, GregGarrettForCongress.com. You'll learn all about me in a 2-minute and 13-second clip. Thank you. Thanks, America. Thank you, Chad. Thanks for all you guys do.
Greg, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.